Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Inner Harbor Cast. This is the podcast where we explore the inspiring stories of impactful work happening right here in our community. Today, we're honored to have a very special guest. She is I know I'm going to mess this up, the executive director of the Red Cross. But I know there's a lot more to that title. All right, Lisa Smith is with us this morning. From providing critical disaster relief to offering life-saving services, the Red Cross plays an essential role right here in Central New York, all over the country, as a matter of fact, in our society. And in this episode, we'll hear firsthand about the organization's mission, challenges, and the incredible ways they're making a difference every day. So I want you to sit back, relax, 20, 30 minutes, and let's dive into a conversation that sheds the light of humanitarian efforts in the incredible work of the Red Cross. Lisa, first of all, good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I think I have that morning voice going today.
Me too. So we're a great pair, right?
Yeah, it works out well. Their voices are awesome. No, they're not always like that. But first of all, what is your exact title? You are the executive director.
I am the executive director, but
more
of Central and Northern New York.
Wow. Yeah. You cover a whole lot of territory.
Absolutely, yeah. The most beautiful part of New York, yeah.
You know, and right off the top, maybe if somebody's watching this a few days down the road, but just recently, though, there's a major fire in Messina, New York. That would be your territory, right?
That is, yes.
Where six individuals lost their lives. How does the Red Cross step up to help them in this situation?
Sure. So, you know, this chapter and chapters across the whole country respond to 2 to 3 disasters a day. And most of them for us are home fires. So we work very closely with emergency management in all of the counties that we cover. And we're actually asked to respond. So we are invited in, if you will. So for instance, in Messina, as well as Baldwinsville, the big fire in Baldwinsville, we're still working with the families there. That just happened this weekend. So we go in, we bring our volunteer disaster responders, come in immediately, take the victims of the fire away from the area, working with the fire department to really allow the fire personnel, the responders, to do their jobs. So we work, we take the victims, we make sure that they have a safe place to stay that evening. We make sure they have things on their feet, shoes on their feet. The children have, some comfort care, that kind of thing. And then eventually we will case manage them. There's financial aid. We will make sure they have food. We'll replace their medicine. We offer mental and spiritual care, all those types of things. But when you look specifically at, I'm going to use Baldwinsville because it just happened this weekend.
Huge.
We're here. It was a huge fire. We had about 5 responders that went, at night to help the people there. There were about 20 families that were affected. We opened a shelter at OCC, which is one of our big partners in this county, and to have a place that people could go immediately. And some of those families, literally, they grabbed their little children and headed out the door with nothing else. Nothing. They were barefoot. They're in
no toiletries,
nothing.
No clothes, no nothing.
They didn't have their car keys. They didn't have their credit cards. The children literally were just in pajamas. They didn't have diapers. They had nothing. So, we make sure they get to the shelter. We take care of it. We feed them. Give at least mom and dad slippers for their feet, blankets to wrap the kids up so they can go to sleep. And then in the morning, I got there about 6 or 7, took a list from the people that were there of those specific needs that they needed right away. And I went out, again, working with another one of our partners, which is Walmart, and purchased shoes and underwear and diapers and all that type of thing just to get people settled. And then we work with community partners. So in this case, the community of Baldwinsville, I'm sorry, really stepped up as so many communities do. We started getting calls because the Red Cross won't take donations. That's not what we do. We don't have the manpower to manage that because, as you can imagine, a community that's generous, the school district collected things, and within 15 minutes,
they said
they were completely overwhelmed.
100,000 items. Everything from
Absolutely, which is
toothbrushes to shoes
fantastic,
to
but think about how to manage that. So you really need people in the community to step up,
Mhm.
and I've got a bunch of calls, and then we started coordinating with the volunteer center, the Baldwinsville Volunteer Center, who is now managing all of that and will manage
Wow.
donations and that kind of thing. So what we do is that first response, we help with recovery, and then we work with the community to get people back on their feet. So we're not meant to be there forever, but we are meant to be there initially to make sure people are safe and taken care of.
Let me ask you, how does it get to that point though? Who calls the Red Cross? Who is it? The 911 center reaches out when they know they have
Sure. Well,
a
we have a
disaster like this.
process, but each county is a little different.
Okay,
But we either hear from the fire chief,
I see.
the fire marshal, emergency management is
Mhm.
normally what happens. So they call us because often we won't respond if it's a building fire.
Right,
And there's no people involved. We usually just focus on home fires.
right.
However, if we're called because it's a large fire to take care of the responders, which we will do as well, we'll
Mhm.
set up canteening and have water and Gatorade and wet towels for smoke, to
Yeah, no,
keep this.
exactly.
Yeah.
I was the fireman for 20 years, so I can
Oh,
relate
yeah,
a little
yeah.
bit to what you're saying, but
Right,
it's our viewers and our
right.
listeners need to understand, the workings of the Red Cross
Sure.
and
Yep.
what's going on here. What is the most challenging part of responding to these types of emergencies?
Well, our workforce is 90% volunteers
Okay.
because we could not do what we do without volunteers. So our paid staff is a very small component of our workforce. So keeping volunteers, you know, trained and at the ready is a lot of work, and we need a lot of people.
Mhm.
So our biggest issue is, especially as people age, our people tend to stay with us forever, and then they get to a period of
Wow.
time like you and I, we
Mhm.
get to that period
Mhm.
of time where
Mhm.
you start settling back a little bit. We need to keep replacing people. So what I always say is, we need more people so that we can respond correctly and appropriately and quickly. We're able to do that right now, but we have to build capacity.
Mhm.
But more importantly, I think our biggest challenge. So we're really great at responding to fires here because we do so many.
Right.
The city of Syracuse is the highest risk in our whole region. And of course, the people that are affected the most are the people that have the least to lose,
Yeah, no, exactly. And
always. Yeah,
you mentioned the city of Syracuse. I just know in the news just recently there were like four structure fires.
correct.
People were left without homes and
Right,
they've lost all their belongings. And
right.
the Red Cross had to
Yeah,
step up.
like
Didn't
I
have
said,
to, you wanted to
well,
step up
yeah,
to help them.
but
So,
we do this, like I said, 2 to 3 times a day. So it's
wow.
just amazing. Every 6 minutes someone needs the services of the Red Cross. But what's also happening when you look across the country,
Yes.
we respond everywhere. It's not just right here, obviously. And we also work internationally. We have other divisions in other
Hmm.
countries.
Hmm.
But when you look across the country, everything that's happening with climate change is, we're out working in the wildfire with
I
the
was going to ask
wildfires
you
in
about the
California.
wildfire
Yeah.
fires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have our people usually deploy out for 2 to 3 weeks. So our first wave is coming back, but we had 12 people from this chapter that went out,
Oh,
and
wow.
then 25 in our region that gave up their time, their lives to go out and help other people.
Hmm. Hmm.
But just look what happened in the fall.
Yeah. The,
We had Helene,
oh, my
Milton.
goodness. Yeah.
Um,
Back to back.
yeah, and I deployed for Helene. I was
Okay.
part of the early response
That
team.
was in Asheville.
Well, so Helene was supposed to hit in Tallahassee, right
Okay. So
outside of
that was down
Tallahassee. That
along
was
the Gulf
Florida.
Coast.
Right. So we started deploying people out to be prepared to open
Okay.
shelters and that type of thing. So I was out there for 3 weeks. We got through Helene, doing good work, a lot of people affected, and then Milton hit a
That
week
was it.
later. And this was literally our biggest response, our biggest disaster we've ever had because it affected all of Florida.
Yeah. Oh,
Milton
yeah.
was just so
Huge.
you've already had Helene. Milton came through. Thankfully, did not hit Tampa as they thought it would because the loss of life would have been tremendous. So it went a little south, but then 25 tornadoes came as well, all at the same time. So you already had this whole infrastructure helping people. We ended up with 85,000 people in shelters
Wow.
when Milton hit in the state of Florida. Now that doesn't even count what's going on in Georgia and South Carolina and Tennessee and North Carolina. North Carolina was hit so badly. They had over 200 people lost their lives.
Yes.
It was a mass casualty event, all from Helene. It was just insane. I went to Asheville in North Carolina 2 months after the storm had hit, just to help. I usually work in government services, and working with the local governments. And I went out and looked, and whole communities were just gone. Mountainsides
I can't even imagine.
were, the mud that just broke off of mountains and wiped out communities were crazy. We couldn't even drink the water yet. And this was 2 months after it happened. So, the Red Cross is going to be there working with these people for a long time. But so everybody sees these things on the news, but look at what's happening right here. Mother Nature is knocking on our door and she is angry.
Somebody upset her. That's all I know.
So
But,
we are not immune anymore. We have
Yeah,
spent many, many, many years really kind of skating by. And this chapter in particular is such a great feed to send our volunteers out because, the worst we can ever say is we get a lot of snow, and we don't even notice that anymore. And it
No,
doesn't even
exactly.
snow as much as it used to.
No, not as it used to, but I have to say, just what has happened recently is
Correct.
like the way it used to be years ago.
Exactly.
When I was growing up, there used to be the snowbanks.
Right.
End of November, there were snowbanks alongside the road. We haven't seen that in a long time,
Right.
and here we
And
are.
here we are. But look what's happened just since May, I think. We had a tornado in Lewis County,
Unheard
followed
of, but
by
yes.
a flood.
Yep.
And then within 2 weeks, we had a tornado hit Canastota, which wiped out a whole city block.
Yep.
And a gentleman lost his life in that disaster. And hours later, a tornado came through and wiped out downtown Rome, which was the most devastating thing that the city of Rome has ever had happen.
Yep,
Ever.
exactly.
And that's right here. That's here in our backyard. So, we need to be prepared. A lot of what the Red Cross does is preparedness training as well. So we do respond to disasters, but we try to make sure that people are prepared for a disaster. So one of the biggest pieces that we do is our smoke alarm installations.
I was going to ask you about it. It's on my list of questions here.
I can just keep talking.
Yeah,
You don't
no,
even
just,
have to ask.
I'll just sit here and smile.
So
but you're reading my mind and very good. All right, smoke detectors.
So it's so important. And often when we, when we talk to the fire department, especially on a big response, especially if there's loss of life, we always ask, did you hear anything? And often they hear no alarms at all, which indicates that there probably wasn't a working smoke alarm in the home.
I will say this: we going back to the fire at Legacy Apartments in Baldwinsville. Right. There was a video on Facebook a day after, and you could hear a smoke alarm beeping. It was still beeping. Right. And that was such an eerie feeling, seeing that and hearing it, watching the video, and you just hear beep, beep, beep.
Right. Which means that the place is still hot. So
something
not
was going
safe
on.
To be there taking pictures for sure.
Hopefully they kept their distance.
But, exactly.
But
it is, not to make light of it, but,
no, exactly.
Smoke alarms is your best protection against loss of life. It's not going to stop a fire from happening, but it's going to let you know. So if you think about when fires happen the most, it's in the middle of the night when everybody's sleeping. So how are you going to know if you don't have an alarm going off to wake you up? How are you going to know your place is on fire? Whether it's an apartment, a house, doesn't make any difference. So what the Red Cross does is we will install 10-year smoke alarms, free of charge. Our volunteers go in. All you have to do is ask. And then we assess the situation. We put one in each bedroom. We put one on each floor. We install them. Then we do Homes Made Safer training, which really helps people think, what happens if there is a fire? How do we escape? If there's children, we do a little exercise with
Hmm.
them so they understand what the sound is, talk about escape routes. Nobody should wait for each other. You should get out and have a place to meet outside. And we've talked to people afterwards because we always go back after fire, especially if we know, we keep records. Did we install smoke alarms? So we go back to them to make sure the smoke alarm worked and everything. And the stories we get, one in particular that happened in Syracuse last year, the family said, we knew there was a fire. The alarm went off. It was during the day. But what we didn't, the exit that we would normally take was trapped. And
It was blocked.
and we were so nervous, and so, you get so caught up in it, but they remembered their alternate escape route that we went through with them, and that's how they got out of
That's
their
amazing,
place.
though, because usually when somebody is, for the most part, somebody gets excited or they get nervous or whatever, all of a sudden, all those thoughts go out of your mind.
Correct.
If something like that, all right, this is wrong, this is blocked, I can't
Right.
go this way. Oh my God, now what do we do?
Right.
So, yeah, it's something that.
Yeah, so it's so important.
so
Our
important.
our goal is to have working smoke alarms in every single home
Mhm.
everywhere,
Everywhere.
but that's a challenge as well
So,
because you have to ask us for them. We
right, I was
don't know
going to
you
ask.
need
So,
them.
is it open to everybody in
Everyone.
in this
It doesn't
region?
matter. It doesn't matter. There's no financial tests
Right.
at all. If you ask us, we will come in and do
Because
it.
we do hear way too often after a fire that the smoke detectors weren't working or there were no batteries in the smoke
Correct.
detectors or anything along those lines that what they could have died,
Sure.
and I hopefully everybody gets out, but still you need to follow up on that, and it doesn't matter who you are, what your
Right.
income level is, whatever, that they
Correct.
can call the Red Cross and say, I need smoke detectors.
Right. And
And you'll
we'll
send
send
somebody out. I
a
like
group
that.
out
I
to
like
install
that.
them. And we go through your house and help you. If you're
Hmm. Hmm.
overburdening your
Hmm.
outlets or, whatever, we'll talk to you about that as well.
And you work with the fire department with that as well, because
Sure.
they have people that go around and inspect and make sure that you're not
Right.
overloading
We're very,
the outlets.
I would say we have so many partners out
Yes,
there. We can do what we do without them. But, the fire departments truly are our heroes. And we work
100%.
really closely with the fire departments and,
Hmm.
we're here to support them as well.
I want to back up a little bit. You talk about volunteers, but how does one become a volunteer? Plus, what training do they need, or does
Sure.
the Red Cross train them? Can we talk about that a little bit?
I always say we are the closest thing to the military. We're the
I love it
non-military
though.
military. So yes, we have a lot of training. Even for me, that a lot of the things that I do when I deploy, um, it, I do here as my
Hmm.
regular job, but I have gone through hours and hours and hours of training. It's really incredible. So to volunteer, basically it's just going onto our website and filling out a form to volunteer. And then you're called by someone from volunteer services and they kind of triage what your interests are, what your skill sets are, what you are thinking of doing. And then they will send you to whichever department that makes sense. Because of course we have so much volunteer opportunity. It's not just responding to
You can never have
disasters.
enough.
Yeah, we have needs in volunteer
Hmm.
services, just data entry, everything we
There's always
do.
something.
Yeah, everything we do, there's a volunteer behind,
Nice.
that role. So, and then they just go through, they meet with whomever in that line of service that they're interested in, and then find out what it would take to, become to do that job. And we do a background check,
Hmm.
and, everybody that's part of the Red Cross goes through a background check, and then they do the training that they need. Some of the training, we've done some boot camp training, if you will, because the need was so great during Helene that we had
Hmm.
to find new people to go out. We couldn't keep up. We
Sure.
had over 1,000 people down there that change every 2 weeks, so we needed new people. So we were able to train people very quickly and get them out the door and send them down there. But even that training them very quickly took a few weeks.
Yeah, the age requirement. I'm thinking like, okay, like a buddy of mine just retired.
Hmm.
He's looking for something to do.
Right.
He's enjoying life, but he wants a little something to do.
Sure.
So I think there'd be a great opportunity
Yeah,
to.
there's no age requirement
Okay.
at all. And again, it depends on the type of role. A lot of retirees of course, are responding to our what we call DAT calls, to the fire calls.
Mhm.
But there also is a huge need for volunteers to pick up blood and transport it. So that's a big piece. And there are a lot of retired volunteers that just love to do that. You
Mhm.
know, they pick up the blood from either the donation center or a mobile center and then transport it to Rochester for
Mhm. Mhm.
for processing, or take it directly to the hospital that it's supposed to go to. And there's nothing better than pulling up in a Red Cross vehicle and walking through a hospital with that
Right.
case that
Right.
says blood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great feeling.
Yeah,
So,
I bet it is.
yeah, so there's that as well. There's so many different things.
Before we let you go today, I have to ask, you give so much to the community.
Mhm.
Food, clothing, housing.
Right.
It all comes at a price. So
Yeah.
is it all donations from, the public, or how does that work
Yeah,
with the
so
Red Cross?
we are funded by the generosity of our donors.
Okay.
So, the big piece is, of course, we have, our workforce is mainly volunteers. The public funds us to do the things we do. Um, and that's how people can help us. They can volunteer or they can send a donation.
Mhm.
Both is needed and both are expected. And I don't want to walk away without saying, we talked about blood very quickly.
Yes.
But, every 2 seconds, someone needs blood. Every
Mhm.
2 seconds.
Mhm.
And blood only lasts so long. So we have to constantly refresh the supply. Here we manage 90% of all the blood in this community. So we need to make sure we have enough to meet the need.
And the blood drives, they're located right on the website, correct? And
Correct.
so you can pick and choose where you want to go to give
Absolutely. It's
blood.
very simple.
It's very
And,
important.
one you can give, one donation will save 3 lives. So no
That
reason not to
stat
do it.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
And they
awesome.
don't even prick your
That's
finger
awesome.
anymore.
Yeah.
They
Oh, I
do something
remember
else.
that.
Yeah, they don't even do that anymore.
No, you
So,
just walk in and
yeah.
answer a few questions, and you're
Yeah.
off to give
Yeah,
blood.
and
So,
you get snacks at the end.
Lisa Smith, the executive director, Central New York region,
Central and
Northern.
Northern New York.
Bam.
Yeah, that's
Got
all
it.
right.
Steve was like, our producer over there he sent me an email. He's like, her official title is this, and
Yeah,
it's a lot longer than what I gave you before. So, but no,
it's
I get it.
okay.
You have a lot of responsibility,
Yeah.
and you're doing a hell of a job. I mean, just everything that you're doing and touching the community, especially right here locally with everything that has happened recently.
Right.
And we don't know what the future is going to bring, but we need the Red Cross, and
Thank
we
you.
need the generosity of our donors to keep the Red Cross as strong as it is right now, if not stronger.
Right.
So
And thank you for helping us get the word out. We
yeah,
appreciate
no,
it. We
absolutely.
couldn't do that without you.
I had my
So,
list of questions, but I didn't need it. But thank you so much for
okay.
coming by. It's been the Inner Harbor Cast, and this is something we do all the time. And if you like what you're seeing in my discussion with Lisa Smith, just subscribe to the Inner Harbor Cast, because we have a lot of organizations, for example, the Red Cross, they come in and chat with us. So it's just, we're in touch with the community. We are hometown. We are born and raised right here in Syracuse, just like you. So that's pretty cool. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.